You probably think hospitals run on medicine. Doctors, machines, sterile rooms, white walls. Oil never even enters the picture. And yet, without petroleum-based materials, modern medicine doesn't collapse in one dramatic moment. It simply starts failing quietly, in places nobody films and nobody talks about. Not the heroic moments. The invisible ones. The parts that keep people alive while everything else gets the attention. Think about what you actually see when you walk into a hospital room. The four-line taped to an arm. The clear bag dripping fluid drop by drop. The tubing that bends without cracking. The syringe that appears already sterile, already trusted, already ready to be used. None of it looks remarkable. And that's exactly why it matters. When something works perfectly, you stop questioning where it came from. Here's the tension most people never notice. Those materials weren't chosen because they were the most elegant solution imaginable. They were chosen because, at a critical moment, they solved problems nothing else could solve at scale. Before plastics, medicine relied heavily on glass, metal, and natural rubber. Glass could crack, chip, or shatter at the worst possible time. Metal tools corroded and demanded constant, careful sterilization over and over again. Natural rubber aged, absorbed substances, changed properties over time, and was harder to sterilize consistently in busy hospital settings. Every reusable solution fixed one problem and quietly introduced another. And every new risk meant more time, more steps, more chances for something to go wrong. Then petroleum-based plastics entered the picture, not as a miracle, and not with celebration, but as a practical workaround. They could be produced cheaply, in huge quantities, and shaped into almost any form. More importantly, once refined, they behaved the same way every single time. They didn't crack unexpectedly. They didn't corrode. They didn't change their properties overnight. That predictability didn't just improve individual tools. It changed how hospitals were designed to function. Here's the first connection people rarely make. Plastics didn't spread through medicine because doctors were excited about them. They spread because hospitals needed speed, consistency, and control. Reusing equipment meant cleaning, sterilizing, inspecting, tracking, and trusting every step, every shift, every day. Disposable plastic quietly removed an entire chain of uncertainty. Single-use didn't feel revolutionary, but it reshaped infection control from the ground up. And once that shift happened, there was no going back. But there was a trade-off hiding in plain sight. Medicine became cleaner, faster, and safer in many ways. And at the same time, it became structurally dependent. Four bags are commonly made from petroleum-derived plastics like PVC or polyolefins. Infusion sets often rely on flexible plastic tubing. Most modern syringes are plastic and single-use, not because it looks modern, but because it guarantees consistency and sterility at scale. These aren't accessories. They're infrastructure. And once they became the default, everything else adapted around them. Devices were redesigned to work with disposables. Procedures were standardized to assume constant availability. Supply rooms, storage systems, and workflows were built around consumables that arrive, get used once, and disappear. Here's the second turn in the story. When supply chains tighten, hospitals don't just worry about fuel or electricity. They worry about materials. The unglamorous things: tubing, bags, disposable components. Shortages don't look dramatic. They don't come with explosions or sirens. They show up as delayed procedures, ration supplies, and quiet slowdowns that ripple through the system. The hospital doesn't fail loudly. It slows down quietly. Now let's break a myth most people accept without thinking. The myth says plastics entered medicine because they were simply better for patients. The reality is more complicated. They entered because they were scalable, consistent, and easier to control at a system level, and the patient benefits followed that shift. Once petroleum-based plastics proved reliable and affordable, medicine reorganized itself around them. And here's the part that's hardest to see. Even when you hear about alternatives or newer materials, petroleum often doesn't disappear. It moves upstream into raw materials, processing, and logistics, out of sight. By the time a patient sees a syringe, the oil story already happened somewhere else. And that's the uncomfortable reality. Modern medicine doesn't just use oil. It is organized around systems that grew alongside it. Not because oil is perfect, but because at a critical moment, it solved more problems than it created. So here's the question worth sitting with. If hospitals relied as deeply on petroleum-based systems without most people ever realizing it, what other parts of your daily life were built the same way, quietly, invisibly, and completely out of view?